Hey everyone, welcome to Story Mantra, the mantra that I have been living my life for the last 20 years, which is story and storytelling and everything else that's involved in story. And we're waiting for Lindsay to come on. So she should be on fairly quickly. She's got a little tied up, but I just thought I'd introduce you to our guest today, who is the USA Today bestselling author and Publishers Weekly bestselling author. Beverly Jenkins is the recipient of the 2017 Romance Writers of America Nora Roberts Lifetime Achievement Award, as well as the 2016 Romantic Times Reviewer's Choice Award for Historical Romance. She has been nominated for the NAACP Image Award in Literature, was featured both in the documentary Love Between the Covers and on CBS Sunday Morning. Since the publication of Night Song in 1994, she has been leading the charge for multicultural romance, and she has been a voice for many, many of us. She has been a constant darling of reviewers, fans, and her peers alike, garnering accolades for her work from the likes of Wall Street Journal, People Magazine, and NPR. Beverly Jenkins has reached romance superstardom. Detroit Free Press says that. But that's not the end. This is only the beginning. She has 42 books. That's 42. Can you see that? She has a 10-book blessing series. Can you see that? 10-book blessing series. And she has 3 series in the works. Let me pull that out. Three series in the works. If that's not enough, she has 42 books and 8 novellas in total. Could you tell us a little bit about your works, Beverly? This is just such an awesome something to share with you.
Let me get out of the sun here. It's sundown time here.
Okay.
I write historicals, which is how I made my name. It's published in 1994. I have written romantic suspense, contemporary. I have 2 young adult historicals and the 10-book blessing series, which is considered women's fiction. So I like playing in all the sandboxes. And I'm blessed to have a publishing company that and an editor that allows me to do that. So I'm here talking to you today.
Well, we're super thrilled to have you, and just trying to understand what it takes to put together a series, and you've done 3 of them, leave alone a series with 10 books. So if you're wondering how J.K. Rowling wrote 7 and other people have written 5 or 6, try and fathom a 10-book series. And are you working on another book in that very blessing series?
Yeah,
I am. Yay, she's on.
There she is.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Hi.
Sorry to make you go crazy this afternoon trying to get here.
I'm so sorry. And then one of the things that I had to do later was like, no, I need to come do it now. And I'm so sorry.
So everybody, this is Lindsay Preston, my co-host. Lindsay, we have Beverly Jenkins with us, and we're so excited.
Yeah, life interferes with life, girls. So I understand. Okay.
Thank you. I am so sorry.
Not a problem. We're just thrilled you made it.
No apologies necessary.
This is all live, everybody. So this is real life happening in real time. So Beverly, you were going to tell us about your next book in the Blessing series?
Yep. It is a Christmas book, and it will be out not this year. We thought it was going to be out this year, but it's going to be out next year. So that'll be 2022 as opposed to 2021. So
sorry, did you have a book come out this year?
No, because I didn't make my deadline, which is why I moved the book. Wait, yeah, I did. See why I need to take time off? I don't even know what the hell I'm doing.
Well, you need a vacation.
Book came out February 9th. Wild Rain.
Yes, I saw that cover. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Got on pants, people. She's a rancher. So it is the 3rd book in my, second book in my Women Who Dare series. I write strong women all the time. I don't do victims. And so when we needed a title for this trilogy, we were like, okay, well, you always write Women Who Dare, so that's what we're going to call the series. So that's what we called the series. It's called Women Who Dare.
Wow.
The first book is Rebel, came out last year. And this one is Wild Rain. She is a sub character in the book that came out before Rebel, Tempest. So it's in the world of the Forbidden trilogy, which I call the Rhine Fontaine trilogy. Editors called it the Old West trilogy. So yeah.
Well, after 42 books, you don't have to worry. You're all good. We all know how wonderful.
No. You're only as good as your last book.
Oh.
I'm trying to make sure my readers don't say, good grief, she just wrote that book. Yeah, same book she wrote last time. So you try to avoid phoning it in. And like I said last time, sending in the same book with just different named characters. You don't want to do that. So.
Also, just continuing off of, our conversation on series in the previous session, I have this question I'm burning to ask you, and we were talking about it just before the call. The creation of diverse characters, the creation of diversity in storytelling. What does diversity mean to you?
Stories that have not been told. And it doesn't matter whether it's race or whether it's identity, because queer folks haven't had their stories told either. So for me, anything that's outside of the mainstream, anything that's considered other is diverse to me. And, and people are not hives. There's no hive mind. So what may be diverse to me may not be diverse to somebody else. I'm just, my own little definition. So.
Right. So how do you bring that diversity alive in your story, especially when you're writing a series?
I just write about the people who are diverse. It's not difficult.
Oh, well, for you it isn't, but for some of us.
No. If you write, for me, I just write about the people who look like me, the people who I've grown up with, the people who made the path wider so that I could be here, doing this as opposed to, a 9-to-5 job that, I hate. Mm-hmm. So I stand on the shoulders of all of those people. And I'm very, very blessed to be able to do this. So I always want to give credit and thanks to, my dad who worked 2 jobs, my mama was a stay-at-home mom with 7 kids.
Wow.
And the sacrifices that they made so that I could go to college, so that, and I'm 3rd generation college. So it's not like I'm 1st generation, like a lot of people. But, they still had to make sacrifices because my dad had a degree in biology and chemistry. And because of the times, he was not able to work in either of those fields. And I wound up being a janitor, which is a very, nothing wrong with that. It's a very honorable profession. But he didn't let that stop him from, raising his kids to be the best they could be, to, going to work every day and all that. So diverse means many things. But for me, it's stories that are outside of what has been considered normal. And like I said, the New York Times article in December said that out of all of the books that have been published in the United States since 1950, which is the year before I was born, and I was 70, 3 weeks ago? Out of all of those books, 71 years. Yeah, girl, I'm 70.
You don't look it. So I'm like, seriously? Are you joking with me?
We have a saying in the community that Black don't crack. So, so anyway, as I was saying, in those 71 years, only 5% of the books that have been published in fiction have been by writers of color. So,
Right.
so everything that's outside of the mainstream, outside of that, I consider diverse. So,
Wow.
When
That's
we talk about, you've been talking about diversity, and obviously that's very much kind of driving a lot of your stories, but what comes first for you, the character or the plot?
it depends on the book. Each one's different. Each one is different. Sometimes, sometimes it's the plot. Sometimes it's the character. Um, and there's no rhyme or reason. Like I said, I'm a pantser, so I don't know what I'm doing, even if I do get, some kind of a clue as to what I'm writing. Um, but I know that they are going to be African American. It's the only thing that I know for sure. Um, because there's been, I was growing up, there was nothing on the page for anybody that looked like me. And I was an avid reader. I read everything in my neighborhood library, from the kiddie books to the teen books to, the adult books, and none of them reflected myself on the page. And representation matters so much, but it didn't keep me from reading, because if I had only been waiting to read that, I never would have read anything. So,
Now, how did you find your voice then? Because, a lot of the crux of being a good writer comes from reading, and of course,
yeah,
reading other people's works. So,
I read everybody's work.
but then how
I,
did you find your own voice when you couldn't find someone of your color to connect with because there wasn't work out there?
well, we speak English.
Hmm. We all do, but even then.
I mean, it's not like, I write in standard English. I grew up speaking standard English. So the voice is the standard English that came with the gift of being a writer, because this is a gift. You know, um, you have the stereotype of how Black people are supposed to act and how they're supposed to speak and all of that. And that's a stereotype.
Mm.
So, I write in standard English. Not everybody in the South or everybody in Black history spoke with, a dialect or whatever. Um, so I write from my experience. And my experience was raised in Detroit by a mom who was from Detroit. Uh, that's who I am on the page. And I think your voice develops regardless of who you write, who you are, by what you read. Because you know how to put a sentence together. You know the vocabulary. You know all of the things that go into creating a good story. Um, Comes from reading other authors, um, and going with that. So, I mean, that's not not a hard question or a hard equation. It's just, I just write. That's all I do. I can't explain it.
You can explain it. So that's why we're asking, because we need to understand. And the other question that I'm burning to ask you.
Well, we all write differently.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna write like me. Nobody's gonna write like you. Nobody's gonna write like okay. We all write differently. So, um, your voice is your voice. Your stories are your stories. Lindsay's stories are her stories. Your stories are your stories. So to ask somebody about their voice, we don't know where our voices come from.
Hmm. And yet we're told that's the most important thing to storytelling.
Yeah, well, it is, but they can't tell you how to get that voice.
Right.
You're born with that voice, or you develop that voice as you learn to become. Because I was an editor of my elementary school newspaper in the fourth grade.
Hmm.
Hopefully, I'm writing better now than I was writing then. And that comes from reading, 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 reading. I run into a lot of young kids today that say, well, they want to be a writer, but they don't read. I'm like,
Exactly.
the Sesame Street thing, one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah. I grew up watching that too.
It's like, no, if you don't read, you won't be a writer. At least you want to be a good writer, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's somebody out there that, could slap me with a manuscript and say they never read and, it'll go to #1 on the New York Times. But generally,
Mhm.
if you aren't a reader, you're not going to be a very good writer. So I always say the person that reads the most wins. And that's regardless of who you are. Doesn't matter race, creed, identity, you got to read.
You have to read.
Yeah.
There's no two ways. And then how about the worlds that you build for your characters? Where does that come from and how do you do it?
It depends on the book. If it's, and I'm a 19th century specialist. I'm a kitchen table historian. I put the history books on my kitchen table and I write from there because I was an English major in college. And I weave that story against the background because for me, it doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense when I sold the first book. I had 70 pages of heat. There was no story.
Oh, wow.
And Ellen Edwards, who was the executive editor at Avon, she said, well, Beverly, we love your writing. We love your love scenes. There's no story here. And I was like, damn, I got to write a story? She's like, yeah, you got to write a story. So, I had a Buffalo Soldier and a school teacher who went to Oberlin, because Oberlin was one of the few, well, maybe the only higher institution of learning that allowed African Americans to get a higher education. And so she's a teacher. So she went to Oberlin. He's a Buffalo Soldier, which was the 9th and 10th Cavalry, which is one of the highest decorated, was an all-Black unit, 2 all-Black units, highest decorated unit in the West in the military. So it didn't make sense for me to take these 2 Black people and put them against a majority white background when I knew that there was Black history that I could use that was deep and wide and depth and had scope. So that's what I did and created my own little niche. For years, I was the only person out here writing African-American historicals.
So you
And
began with historicals? That's where you began your journey in the writing?
first book was historical, yeah. In fact, I didn't do contemporaries till probably, gosh, I don't even know, 2000 and something. I started at 94. I was doing 1 book a year. Back then we had the luxury of doing 1 book a year. So you could mess around and,
Live
make
the rest of your life.
right, yeah, make the books big and fat, because back then we were writing 10-page love scenes. If you look at some of those older books, you'd be going, wow. Yeah, 10-page love scenes. And there was sort of a threshold that you needed at least 4 love scenes in each book.
Really?
So
That was the formula that was
that's
mandatory
the
or
formula. Yeah, editors ask, well, how many love scenes do you have?
wow.
So now it's like it's all over the place. So, and which is okay, so, but back then we were writing 1 book a year. So I probably started, I don't know, I'd have to look up and see when Edge of Midnight was published, because that was my first contemporary in the marketplace. It was the first thing I wrote, though. It was the first thing that was rejected. That book was so bad. Oh my God. That book was so bad. And since then, probably in, God, 85 or 86. And I swear the rejection letter almost beat me home from the post office. I mean, it was that bad.
Oh dear.
But it turned out to be my first contemporary, because my contemporary characters are the descendants of my historical characters. That's sort of my hook, okay?
Huh.
Which I didn't know was going to be a hook. I had no idea. So it come to find out that they're very, very bad first foray it was really bad, had to wait because the people in the book are the descendants of my third book, Indigo. I didn't know that then. But once I started, because my editor said, well, do you have anything contemporary? And you always say yes. You never say no. You say yes, 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 I do. Yes, I do. So put out that very, 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 very bad manuscript that had been sitting in the drawer for like, 15 years.
But you had a manuscript, so you had something.
Yeah, I had something, but it was bad. It was like, no, you're not gonna, but I looked at it, cleaned it up, and realized who they were then, 15 years later. So
That must have been like an awakening at that point.
it was, because it was like, because writing is so strange sometimes, and especially for a pantser. And I'm like, oh, that's who these people are. No wonder I couldn't get them published before. I had to wait for their ancestors to be born.
You're working in reverse.
Yeah, I was working in reverse. So so then when I did the second, and those first 3 books in the contemporary are all descendants of Hester and Galen from Indigo. And then the last 2 are 2 women. One is a government assassin. The other one is a sports agent. And they are 2 descendants of my towpath, my women on the wagon train going to Kansas with the mail order brides.
Right.
So these are their great granddaughters. So yeah, I'm, discovered, I had no clue. I was clueless. I'm still clueless in a lot of ways, but.
So what is your advice to newbie writers and even seasoned authors who are facing rejections? How should we handle it? What do we take out of those rejections?
If you're gonna need a thick skin to be in this business. And I know when you get a rejection, it's like somebody telling you got an ugly child. Oh, your baby's so ugly, But, the idea that you're getting your stuff out there and getting rejected still means that you're getting your stuff out there. And that means a lot. A lot of people give up. And the sun is like killing me here. I tell people, take up knitting. I mean, if you don't want, because we've all had the rejection. I had enough rejections from my first book to pay for the home to everybody I know.
Oh boy.
Everybody. I mean, I got rejections I got so many rejections, my agent didn't even show them all to me.
Really? But you had an agent, which says a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
some who were still trying to get to that stage.
Well, I don't even know how I got it. It was Vivian Stevens who founded RWA, which was kind of amazing. I don't know how I found her. I just sent my little raggedy manuscript off to this woman that I saw in Romantic Times, and she called me.
Wow.
So, but still got rejected. And all that should make you do, and you got the standard rejection letter. Nobody gives you any kind of feedback. Just like, we don't like this, sorry, try again. So you just keep going. You have to. You don't give up. Because if you give up, they win. You don't want them to win. You want to win.
Well, that's a very positive way of looking at it. I've never looked at it that way.
You keep going. Because, and now you have the advantage of self-publishing. We didn't have that.
Yeah.
It was either, I think it was like 29 publishers back then. Now we got 5.
Yep.
It's back then it was either to do traditional or not at all. Or maybe you could get, some vanity press you could give them thousands of dollars and wind up with, 500 copies in your basement or in the trunk of your car. But now you have the advantage of self-publishing where you can put your own stuff out there. And there are advantages to both, self-publishing, and there are advantages to traditional, and there are downside to self-publishing and downside to traditional. So at least you get a choice.
You have a choice, right? That's true.
Back then we had no choice. It was like either, do this or not. So don't ever give up. There's somebody out there that wants your story.
And
Because
how about authors of color, Beverly? You know, with this whole own voices, hashtags, and diversity, when we get rejected for our works, which are not in the majority, but on the minority side, how do we take that rejection, keep our story authentic, and yet still not give up?
write it. It's the same advice you give anybody. I'm talking to everybody here. There's no difference. Write the damn book. You know, keep writing. You know, and one of the great things about self-publishing is that a lot of the minority women who had been rejected were like, fuck this. We will self-publish. And they have turned this industry upside down. Because now publishers are chasing them, talking about, hey, come over here. Don't you want to play with us now? Come on, come on, come on. You know, bring your people. You know, so, you know, it's where a lot of the hybrid authors are.
Yeah.
So, you know, you don't let anybody run you away, regardless of who you are. I mean, and then as Black women, that's where you're raised to, you know, you don't ask God to move the mountain. You just tell him to give me the strength to keep climbing. You know, that's what you do. And that's what you do if you're an author, if you're a writer. You keep climbing, regardless of who you are. Somebody wants that story.
That's great advice. Because now we are at our time. I've got one last thing, because you said that everything comes back to reading. Who are you reading right now?
I'm a big fantasy reader. So I just found the time when I think the last time I read a book was in September. I like J.D. Robb. I'm a big Alona Andrews fan. If I could only pick one author I could read for the rest of my life, it would be Alona and her husband, Gordon. They're a couple writing. I'm a big Pat Briggs fan. Jim Butcher, fantasy. And all of these young girls of color who are writing these books, I was on Twitter, I told them, y'all gotta stop writing. Y'all gonna put me in a poorhouse. Stop. I didn't really mean that, but yeah, there's, you know, it's one of the great times to be a creative of color right now. It's a window sort of open.
Lindsay, do I get one more question to spin off of that? Okay, well, one quick question. What grabs you in the stories that you love and the authors that you loved? What is it about their storytelling?
Page turners. You know, all I love is a good story. It can have vampires in it, it can have dragons, it can have, you know, men and women. It doesn't matter. If it's a page turner and it's a voice that I've come to love, I'm gonna read it. Simple, I guess.
Well, we recommend all of our watchers to pick up some of your books and learn to love your voice, because you are a spectacular person just to even talk to. So.
I know, she's like a literary phenomena. I'm just so honored to have her. Like, and we get to keep this video forever and ever.
Thank you, Lindsay. You know, and I'm on Twitter, so, you know, and I live on Twitter. So, you know, join Romance Landia, which we call, you know, Romance Twitter. And
Okay.
if you got questions, you know, you can hit me there. If you got questions, hit me up on the website. There's a
And
link.
we have the links posted below the YouTube for Beverly Jenkins's website.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm always trying to help. I'm not going to read your work. I'm going to tell you that now. I don't have time for that. But I'll, you know, pick my brain on some stuff, or choking myself. I'm not lying, people. I'm just.
Well, thank you so much. You really are just lovely. I mean, such a delight. So lovely.
Thank you. It's so great meeting you.
You too.
Meeting you. All right, ladies.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Beverly and
Thanks
Lindsay.
for having me. It's been awesome. Okay.
Thank you. And we'll see everyone back next week on Story Mantra.
All right, take care. Bye. Okay.